Hello. Welcome back. We are now starting our second session of the ILLS6 conference, the phonology and phonetics session. Our first speaker today is Meng Liu, speaking on prosodic factors in foreign accents of L1 English learners of Chinese. Thank you.
You can speak into this one. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. So let's start it. My study purpose for the study is to explore how prosodic features contribute to the perception of foreign accent of L1 English learners of Chinese, with a focus on rhythm by using rhythm metrics. So the overview of the study, first I will introduce the English and Chinese prosody factors that contribute to foreign accent, and two studies will be presented here. The first study is about the perception of foreign accent rating, and the second study is after we got the perception scores and we go inside of the acoustic details and to explore the two groups, L1 English learners of Chinese and native speakers of Chinese, and to see these two groups, what's the difference between the rhythm measurements, and the conclusion will be presented at the last. So for English and Chinese prosody, intuitively, we think English is a syllable timed language, which means I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. Actually, in English, it's stressed timed language, which means the occurrence of the stress will be occur at regular intervals, just like pronunciation is important. So there's two stress there, and for Chinese, yeah, it's the syllable timed language. Yeah, this one I got it right. So just like it sounds like 发音很重要. So for each duration of the syllable, the occurrence occur at regular intervals. So, but that's the intuitively, and also from that intuition, we think foreign accent, according to JCA, any foreign accent's major characteristic could be described as a deviating realization of corresponding phonological units that can often be tracked back to specific features of respective speaker's native language. So since English is a stress-timed language and Chinese is a syllable-timed language, we would assume L1 English learners, which from a stress-timed language group, when they speak Chinese, would sound somehow different from native speaker of Chinese, which is originally a syllable-timed language. So there's many studies talk about factors that contribute to foreign accent. For example, in English, segmentals and syllable structures, and prosody, word duration, pauses, and rhythm metrics, and also speaking rate. We all find these factors as significant influence L2 learners of English and their accent degree. But there's some criticism from previous experimental studies. They talk about rhythm metrics. They have doubt there whether rhythm metrics exist to distinguish two different language groups, like syllable-timed language and stress-timed language, and also whether the measurement itself is accurate indicator, a kind of phonological difference. So, and also in Chinese, previous study have found vowel formant and phrase initial lengthening and shortening, as well as tone, are good indicators of foreign accent. So in this study, I just want to try it out. Although there's criticisms there, I just want to see whether those rhythm measurements still somehow related to L1 Chinese listening perception, and see whether the foreign accent can be detected from the durational-based measurement. So the study one is about perception. The research questions are how rhythm measures correlates with different degrees of foreign accent needs, and how speech rate correlates with different degrees of foreign accent needs. So the methods, I have recruited 3 native Mandarin speakers. They are from mainland, and the stimuli used here are from 6 informants and 8 sentences of story reading and 10 seconds of utterances from the 6 of the informants. So each participant will rate 96 stimuli by using an adaptive visual analog scale. So from 0 is no foreign accent to 100 very strong foreign accent on a continuous scale, and also interview will be conducted was conducted about their rating criteria to see whether they can verbalize something there and they can detect what contributes to the foreign accent. So the statistical analysis, the foreign accent is mean-centered with mean of 0 and standard deviation of 1. So the black one is the native speaker. You can see they all rated with almost no foreign accent, and here is the L2 learners of Chinese, and they all showing that with some sort of foreign accent. And the measurement take here is speech rate and also the rhythm measurement. So rhythm measurements actually it indicates some durational variability of consonant and vowels compared to adjacent consonant and vowels. So you just remember the variability. So we assume that for stress language, the variability is higher than the syllable times language. So the linear mixed model is conducted. So we want to see what factors contribute to the foreign accent. So with fixed effect of group style speech rate, and because of the collinearity of these 4 measurements, so only one of them are taken at each time. So in total, there's 4 models are built. So with also the random effects of participants and items. So and AIC is compared of the 4 models, and we find that actually the model with the fixed effect of group style speech rate and %V is the lowest one with the AIC, which means the preferred model indicates that this model can explain more of the foreign accent, where does the foreign accent come from. And then okay, so here is the result. So we can see that this is the native speaker group, and this is the student L2 learners of Chinese group. And we can see that the group is a significant factor to tell the different foreign accents. So native speaker with almost no foreign accent, and L2 learners with some sort of degree of foreign accent. And the conversational reading is the speech style, which find also a significant indicator. So which means the students are rated with higher foreign accent, more foreign accent when they reading things. But in the conversational speech, natural speech, they rated with lower foreign accent. And for the speech rate and foreign accent, which is also found that speech rate is also a good indicator of foreign accent. So for students, the faster they speak, the less foreign accent is perceived. But for the rhythm measurements, we really didn't find any significant statistical explanations. Although the %V contributes model, which is a preferred model, but we failed to find any good patterns. So you can see the blue and black is the native speakers reading and conversational speech, and the green dot and red dot is the L2 learners reading and conversational speech. So you can see there's really no clear patterns there. So study 2 is about production. So we see that actually we fail to find any clear pattern, but I just want to see what about from the acoustic detail, compare these two groups, whether we can find anything. So the research questions are: what are the differences in rhythm between L1 English learners of Chinese and Mandarin Chinese speakers? And what are the differences in rhythm concerning production during reading and spontaneous speech? So 3 native Mandarin speakers are recruited and 3 L1 English learners of Mandarin speakers. So these speakers are all with 3 to 4 years of Chinese learning experience, and they all describe themselves as intermediate to advanced level. So the stimuli used here is the north wind and sun, very famous narrative story reading, and also they're supposed to answer 8 questions in Chinese with specific topics. So the analysis, all the files are segmented with force aligner and helped with manual adjustment. And also the linear mix model is built, so you can see we want to find the rhythm measurements and the speech rate, whether the fixed effect, group and style, and random effect contribute to distinguish these 4 rhythm measurements and the speech rate. So we find that actually for speech rate is the group effect. Here's native speaker and L2 learners. We can see that speech rate actually can tell, and native speakers speak faster in general, and also for the style, you can see the conversational and reading, So in general, style also contribute more. So the native speaker in the reading is much faster, but for the student, somehow, yes, there's a lot of variation, but we can still tell the difference. And for the style of the vocal C, the variability of the consonant, also the style of can tell very different. So the reading in general is different from the conversation, no speech. Yeah, and it's similar with vocal V, the variability of the vowel, and the pairwise comparison of the vowel. We only find style is a significant effect to distinguish these two just different 2 styles of conversational speech and reading speech, but we fail to find there's any significant effect from group that I can indicate native speaker is different from L1 English learners of Chinese. Yeah, and so then we go ahead to interview the previous participant who rated the foreign accent and what's on their mind when they rate different speakers and different stimuli. And we find that actually intonation, tone, pronunciation, and segment are mainly the things that in their mind when they are rating. So I think for future studies, maybe like phonemic contrast may be really different from prosodic, like rhythm measurements and intonation will make a greater difference than those with no phonemic contrast. So probably segments and tone contribute more when we understand things, and so we process harder to understand it. So it contributes more to foreign accent when we try to rate it. So the conclusions from the study is, the study indicates that rhythm measurements is not a powerful tool to distinguish the native and non-native speech of Chinese, and both speech style and speaking rate have significant influence on the foreign accent rating score of the student group and native speaker group. And also specifically in spontaneous speech, students were rated with less foreign accent than the rating utterances. The faster the speaking rate, the less foreign accent is being perceived. And the percent V contribute more to the foreign accent rating than other reason metrics, though the statistic model is not significantly different. So the take-home message of the study is, if you are learning Chinese as a second language learner, probably speak it faster and you will perceive with less foreign accent. Okay, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes for questions.
I'm curious about a couple of things. One of them being so the idea of speech rate. So there might be some kind of top-down influence too. You assume that someone who's talking fast probably knows the language pretty well, otherwise they wouldn't be communicating effectively. That is blah, 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 right? So how much of this do you think has to do with the actual, can't talk, speaking of, the actual realization of the sounds, or sort of perceiver kind of properties? So stuff that you assume about the person who is talking.
Yeah, I think actually speaking rate is very, there's a lot of variabilities, but we cannot assume that L2 language learners with faster speak rate means they can with higher proficiency, because all of the students are from intermediate to high proficiency level, so they all have almost equivalent proficiency levels. So it's just pure individual idiosyncrasy of the characteristic from themselves. So yeah, and also for how the raters will really concentrate on the segments. Actually, it's very hard to tell, because this study mainly concentrated on the rhythm measurements, which is the durational based. So that's a very good question. Maybe in the future study, I'm planning to go ahead to just study how segments from each layers, maybe monosyllable, disyllable, trisyllable, and layer up, and the whole utterances, to find how much of the segments really contribute to the foreign accent rating.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you reported that in your study, there's a part about like interviewing the subjects, right? So I'm wondering about the linguistic background. So as in a more technical, so like linguistic training background, because so you reported that people say, oh, maybe it's a lot about like intonation, tone, and also segment. So I'm wondering what exactly they said that would lead that has led you to say, oh, it's actually what they say, because in linguistics we are sometimes, at least a significant amount of people, I would say, like they are not sure whether they should like actively ask maybe the naive meaning non-linguist, like normal, quote unquote normal people, like about their intuition about language, because we know that there are a million like issues and so on. So I'm wondering like how exactly you tap onto their own intuition to glean out information like, okay, oh, they think it's about intonation, tones, and some shown here. So yeah, that's my question.
Okay, so actually I just asked them in Chinese and they all answer them in Chinese, so I just directly translate in English. So I'm not sure whether they know what is intonation, whether what they mean actually mean intonation, what it contains. Maybe it overlaps with some durational things, tones overlap with each other, but I just put on the possible contributors here, and as you said, they're all non-linguistic, they're all naive listeners. So I think majority of the raters, perceptors around the world, with only limited of them with linguistic training. Yeah, so I just ask them directly.
Hi, so you said of the measures that you chose or you tested, percent V was the best of them, although they weren't statistically significant.
Right.
First of all, I want to just confirm, so percent V is just percentage of the utterance that's vowels, that's correct?
Right, percent V and divided by percent V plus percent consonant, the duration. Yeah.
Right, okay. So I'm wondering, first of all, in the past, has that been an effective one? Is that something that Arbaniti or Delwu or anyone used? Has that been effective in discerning Chinese from English? But you're saying here it was the best, but not statistically significant from determining English accented Chinese from native Chinese. So that's...
Yeah, actually, Avantini and Grab, I think you introduced that paper to us, I think, actually, in class. So actually, those measurements, percent V, varchar V, and varchar C, they all find, in previous studies, find a significant indicator to distinguish different groups languages from probably from syllable time language and to stress time language, not specifically about Chinese and English, but they have done similar things like Spanish and English and other languages. But yeah, so percent V has been found significantly can distinguish two languages with different stress time language and syllable time language.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, do you think that's really important? Do you think that the percent of vowels is an important thing that distinguishes accented Mandarin versus native-like Mandarin? And if so, is that something that second language learners need to think about? Or do you think, given your results, they shouldn't worry about it at all?
I think given the result here, maybe because the model I use is linear mixed effect model is sort of conservative than the MANOVA multivariate ANOVA model. If I use that model, actually percent V turn out to be marginally significant. But if I incorporate the random effects from the participant and items, that significant is just gone. So maybe that's something you can take into consideration. Maybe each syllable, just speak it as a robot as possible in Chinese. Don't exaggerate too much, but in general, speech rate is the much better indicator.
Intuition behind percent V. So if we were to consider there really exists syllable time, okay, so let's not go to the syllables and stress time language yet. So let's just say that what is the intuition behind, for example, the distinction between Chinese and English as native speakers speaking them, and what percent V trying to capture. Basically, that is to capture the distributions of consonant and vowel in the overall speech. So that means that English with more consonant clusters will have less percent V, and Chinese with simple, at most one consonant, initial consonant will have more percent V. And of course, if you're given Russian, then the percent V will be less, because it has copious amount of consonant clusters. But then the questions will be, these people, the learner are trying to speak Chinese given the Chinese syllable structure. So what does percent V means? Because you're given the same text. So what does that mean? Does people have habitually shorter vowel production given a language, and the native language with more consonant clusters? Is that what it means?
I think if you...
is that a fair representation or a follow question of that intuition?
Yeah, does that mean?
What does that mean?
Speakers are lengthening those vowels in Chinese? They're used to lengthening things? Does that mean, what prediction should we have? Or should, coming from English, should they be having really long consonants?
Yeah, just from... Yeah, you can see from this graph here, actually, for conversational speech and compare with native speakers' conversational speech, they are lengthening the vowels. So the percentage of V actually is higher. And it's similar for the reading style between these two groups. So reading actually is more similar, but the conversational, definitely the L2 learners is lengthening the vowel. They shouldn't be lengthened. So actually, I would think just probably from the habits from English, so they like to exaggerate things and show emphatic emotions, so vowel is lengthened. So yeah, that's the characteristic. Probably L2 learners of Chinese should shorten their vowel production to make it equal for every syllable, so they may sound more natural, more native-like. Okay. Okay. Okay.
It says that if you speak faster, then you will be perceived less accented as a foreign language.
Yeah.
But this might indicate that intonation plays some role in Chinese speaking, which is one quite little attraction in the literature. But as studied in the recent publication in the Maochan, that's this year's publication. Perhaps it is a very good book for you to refer to, because the intonation part of the Chinese is not so rigid as you call the syllable timed.
Yeah.
And when you read that study, you will find that intonation of Chinese is much like English, with some prominence and some weak or soft part syllables in that daily conversation.
Right. Yeah, I think you are absolutely right, because stress is a great indicator of the native-like or non-native-like as well, and stress usually come with prolonged vowel. Yeah. So. Okay. Thank you.